Thank you, Presiding Officer. And I'm slightly sorry that it's yourself that's in the chair and Tricia Marwick, because one thing we've not covered in the debate today is the problems that working class women face, particularly in political life and in civic life. And we have a strong working class woman at the top in our own Parliament, and I would like to have said that to her today. I'd also like to pay tribute to my friend and colleague Jenny Mara, who has put this issue firmly at the centre of our political discourse, and also pay tribute to all the women that came before me and the women's movement at the heart of our party. This is a Labour debate. It's not just Jenny Mara's debate, this is a Labour debate because it speaks to our values and what we stand for. Yeah. Can I make a little bit more progress, please, Mr Robertson? Quotas would be good for women's issues, but I would also say to Christine Graham, I agree. It would be good for women and men, and I believe for addressing apathy in the political process, and it's at the heart of building a more progressive and equal society. And I hope to get into a little bit of depth about that as we go on. But I'm also very pleased that Graham Day brought up the issue of journalism today, because in my view it's not just political and civic life we need to talk about, it's how it's reported. The number of female faces in the lobby in this building has been tiny during the 5 years that I've worked here, and it shows in the nature of reporting. News comes from divisions and splits or barnstorming speeches, but it rarely comes from seeing an issue in the round. It's what I've heard Leslie Riddick describe as civic health. Child poverty is a good example of that, where we take an issue, we look at all the aspects of it, and we report about it in the round. And, you know, there's an age-old feminist adage that the personal is the political. And I think we need more of that in our politics if we're going to turn around declining turnout figures. And you might question the link, but I repeatedly hear two things when I'm out on the doorstep. One, that politicians are all corrupt, and two, that people aren't very interested in politics or that they're not interested. Part of the battle to overturn apathy is to reaffirm the political process's relevance to people. You do that by making it personal. Instead of abstract fights about splits, we need more stories. Actual stories of how people live their lives and pay their bills. Human voices that articulate the political ills of the day. If we change the way we talk about politics, we can change and build the audience that listens. Breaking down the establishment and breaking down the political elite is crucial to achieving equality. Leslie Riddick has a lot to say about this issue. In fact, one article she wrote back in 2000 has stuck with me over the years. In an article entitled, "In the Land of Cynics and Numpties, Let's Hear It for the Holyrood Women," she poses the question, what is the point of electing women to Parliament if they have to act like men to survive? The article points to the early trials and tribulations that leading women like Wendy Alexander and Susan Deakin had to face in order to do things differently, and therefore well. The article describes the bold steps Susan Deakin took to tackle the health inequalities women faced. Smoking rates amongst young women, abortion rates, access to contraception, and how she was harangued for them. Joanne Lamont, Margaret Curran and Wendy Alexander are all women who inspired me and continue to inspire me, but so too did Nicola Sturgeon, a fantastic role model for young women in politics, operating at the highest level of Scottish politics for over a decade. And I think it's important to demonstrate solidarity to each other as women across political lines in the name of progressing the case for gender equality together. You can be the most powerful woman in the room, but that doesn't achieve gender perspective across all decision-making. I'm sorry, Mr Robertson, I've got a lot I want to cover and there's a few points I want to rebut along the way. It's true that things have changed for the better. Women can rise to the top. But what still remains absent is the critical mass. And I say that to Claire Adamson. You need critical mass to drive cultural change. And that is what Quotas is all about. Annabel Goldie brought up the issue of the glass ceiling. Yes, there's a glass ceiling. If you look at the American presidential elections, Sarah Palin, of all people, talked about this. She said that Hillary Clinton had created 18 million cracks in it. And she did that because she spoke to women Republican voters to try and bring people together. But John Park is right. There is a sticky floor as well. There are things that hold women back. And you have to create a critical mass to address that. You need to hear women's voices to identify the problems, that those problems are heard by the majority so that the majority can act in response to them. All these issues are detailed in the Sex and Power report produced by the Equality and Human Rights Commission. And they also talk about the dangers of an opt-out revolution, of women who get so far, who hit that marzipan layer, and then don't go any further because they choose not to make sacrifices, that they can do things differently, they can leave the highest levels of politics and make a life elsewhere that doesn't have the problems that they face every single day and still be a success in their lives. And we need to make sure that we don't just give up on that point. We understand that at the heart of Scotland's public bodies there is a deep-rooted culture that ensures that the merit of a man is worth more than that of a woman. It is something that diversity strategies have not and cannot address alone. And I say to Christine Graham, do you really seriously believe that we have the best possible people serving in every single one of our public bodies?
Christine Graham.
Certainly not. I said I have huge sympathy for it, and I certainly agree with everything you say about critical mass, and you heard what I said about the pupils at Pennycook High. My approach, my personal approach, would be not to have quotas, because I think that's counterproductive, but certainly women need much more support in getting through creating that critical mass and reaching, if not breaking through, that glass ceiling. Yes, but they're practical things, not quotas.
Kezia Dugdale.
I thank Christine for that response, and I'm sure it's a conversation we'll continue to have. Just on the issue of appointment to public bodies, I would also say to the Chamber that there's more to do here than just quotas alone. There's a culture around public appointments that we need to address, because even if we deliver quotas, we could still be creating jobs for the boys and the girls, the same boys and the same girls, and we need to address that along the way as well. I'm going to just very briefly deal with Hums's point, which I'm afraid I took offence to. The reason Labour didn't do this when we were in power is because there were so many other issues around gender equality that we had to address first. Discrimination laws, access to maternity leave, the Equalities Act, rights at work. A lot done, but a lot more to do. And I really thought that was a misplaced point. And I'm sorry, I don't have time to take that. I'm sorry, Mr Eastman. In closing, Presiding Officer, I make an appeal to Annabel Goldie to change her mind. And the woman I put before her is Christine Lagarde. She's someone who supports quotas, and she was asked, how can someone who believes in the free market possibly support gender quotas? And Christine Lagarde's response was, if 1% of the board of directors of major enterprises around the world are women, that's market abuse. And when there is abuse in the market, you regulate it. And when you've regulated that, you can continue as you were before. What we're asking is to address the abuse in the market. So I'll appeal to Annabel Goldie just to consider that a little bit further. Of course.
Annabel Goldie.
We are regulator. I'm sorry.
The member said she's not instinctively a regulator. I don't believe actually that Christine Lagarde is either, and that's why I put her voice to you. What we're trying to do here, Presiding Officer, is to regulate the market so that barriers can be broken down, that we can build a more equal and progressive society together. That's what's at the heart of Labour's motion. The SNP government say that they are progressive, but to make progress, you have to do something, and we believe quotas is the answer.
Thank you very much.